Right guys, bit of a big one today. We're unboxing and checking out the LG 34GK950F gaming monitor. This thing, it's a bit of a beast. So I've got the Acer X34P as my kind of gaming primary own monitor, and that thing takes everything that does to the next level. So I'm a little bit disappointed this is only a review sample, because it would have been awesome to keep this one around and use it myself. Yeah, let's get this thing unboxed, plugged in, and start using it. It's nice to see that these are properly calibrated straight from the factory, and it's good to kind of have something to show that. So good work, LG. One thing I do love about LG monitors lately is that they're super easy to set up. You literally just pull this little tab down and then just slide it in. Done. Right, so as you've just seen, we've got it all set up. It stood right beside me. We'll have a quick run over the I/O. We've got two HDMI ports, one display port, a USB super speed kind of uplink port, and then two USB 3.0 ports coming out of that, as well as a headphone port and the main DC in power. We get kind of full height adjust, which is nice to see. A little bit of spinning, nice to see. So as far as the accessories go, we get the headphone stand which clips on the back. Me personally, I think they're completely pointless, because I always have my monitors facing against the wall and I never want to reach over and hang my headset on the back of it. So for me, I just disregard them most of the time, me personally. We get the USB cable to connect it up to our PC and up to the back of the monitor. We also get a 5K, that's what it says on the label, a 5K DisplayPort cable. So that's a good sign, because you get a lot of DisplayPort cables that come with monitors or don't come with monitors, then you have to kind of source your own. You also get a HDMI as well included, which is nice. Usually, like I was saying, you either have to source them yourself or you just get one DisplayPort or one HDMI cable. Then the power brick is absolutely massive. So if you're looking to hide it somewhere, find somewhere that can take the weight, or if you're trying to stick it to the underside of your desk, you may want a lot of sticky pads or some form of kind of screws to hold that thing down. Because yeah, that's a beast, that's a big old brick. That's enough of the boring what's in the box stuff. Let's turn it on and start playing some games with this thing and see just how well it actually looks. Right, so now my initial excitement has died down, let's talk about what it's like to use this monitor day to day. First things first, we'll cover the externals of the monitor, what it looks like sat on the desk, and what you can expect once you've unboxed and assembled it onto your own desk. On screen, we've got the dimensions and the weight of the display, and I mentioned what the difference is whether you're deciding to use LG's included stand or not. The included stand also offers height adjustment, swivel and tilt adjustment. The only thing this can't offer you is pivot, so you can't rotate the monitor vertically for a 34-inch curved portrait display. VESA support is also present on the rear of the display, so if you decide to go on your own route for mounting options, that's not an issue. The bezel around the display is fairly minimal. Not a thick bezel, but if I'm honest, seeing how far display technology has come in recent years, especially from LG of all people, I would have expected thinner bezels for a much more true-to-life bezel-less display. Considering its price and what you can expect from the same price on LG's TV lineup, it's a little bit disappointing. Moving around to the back, the red accents are visible. The signature round circle on the back of most of LG's newest monitors and the red accents on the rear of the included stand are also present. Also around the back, we get a look at the I/O. As mentioned earlier, we get 2 HDMI ports, a DisplayPort 1.4 and a USB 3 upstream and 2 USB downstream ports. The DC in port is also here, as well as the headphone jack. The HDMI port supports a max resolution of 3440 by 1440 at 85 Hz, and the DisplayPort supports the same resolution but 144 Hz. There are no included speakers with this monitor, and to be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed, because even some kind of cheap 6 or 7 watt speakers are good to have now and then. My Acer Predator X34P does have a pair of 7 watt speakers. They get used on the odd occasion if I can't bother to turn on my headset or turn on my main speakers. It's not very often at all, but it's nice to have the option, and a monitor of this kind of caliber, you should really expect that. As far as the built-in menu is concerned, it's all controlled with the little joystick at the bottom of the display, which also functions as the main power button too. You can use the joystick to adjust your headphone volume and screen brightness without clicking it, just moving it to the sides or backwards and forwards. If you click it once, you get the options of inputs, game modes, and then the main menu, or to turn the display off. Game modes offer kind of different black levels and response times depending on what type of game you're playing. You have to choose them before you're playing, presets for an FPS or an RTS game, or whatever the game may be. Generally, I leave it on Gamer 2 most of the time, as it just seems to be the brightest and most pleasing to my eyes. Heading into the main menu, you get the options of adjusting the kind of game mode to a few others, including HDR effect, which looks okay, but a little strange depending on the application. You also have the options to turn off Freesync, adjust your black levels, choose a different response time, or enable the kind of cheating crosshair option for games like CSGO. You also get the basic options like picture adjustment, brightness, contrast, colors, etc. And in the general section, you get access to the power saving modes, turning off the display LED, and a few more rather unnoteworthy features. Right, let's get down to the more interesting stuff this monitor has to offer. That display though. So this display is what really matters. The rest of the monitor could be complete and utter trash in my opinion. It could have a terrible stand, no USB upstream or any of the sorts, and I just wouldn't care. The display is just that good. As far as specs go, we've got that 34-inch 3440 by 1440 screen. It covers 98% of the DCI-P3 color spectrum thanks to its factory color calibration and that Nano-IPS display. It comes supporting Freesync 2, adding reduced latency support for HDR content and support for low frame rate compensation, on top of the usual Freesync features to reduce screen tearing whilst playing games. Then when you pair that with a 144Hz refresh rate and a 5 millisecond greater grey response time, things start to get a little bit insane. HDR 400 is supported, but I wouldn't bother with it at all, to be honest. HDR still isn't ready for Windows 10, turning the display a funny bluish pinkish colour when enabled. In games it looks a little bit different, but I wouldn't say that it's worth bothering with. HDR is all about how bright your display is. On TVs, their typical brightness is much higher, close to or exceeding 1000 nits. This monitor just about hits 400 nits, so less than half the brightness of what many consider a true HDR experience. I think I saw recently on Hardware Unboxed, they'd consider the entry-level HDR to be around 800 nits, and anything less than that, you're not really going to get much out of it. The Nano-IPS display is great that LG have used for everything other than HDR content, as HDR is much more effective when using a local dimming technology such as OLED or quantum dot display technology. As far as ghosting was concerned, it was unnoticeable for me personally. Whilst running the little UFO test, I found no perceivable problems at all, of which I can't really prove due to the limitations of my camera equipment. IPS glow wasn't really too bad, the only hotspot being the kind of bottom left corner of the display and a little bit at the top as well, but for me there's never been a problem with kind of IPS display glowing. It's never really noticeable unless you're a big fan of having a plain black background in Windows. So now we've covered pretty much everything there is to know about this monitor, apart from what it's actually like to use day to day. For starters, it's a big 34-inch ultrawide. If you want to know more about my opinions on ultrawides, then click the video in the corner of the screen to see why I ditched a 4K display for a bigger ultrawide display for my kind of own personal use and enjoyment. But if you want the TLDR of that, it's just better. Gaming looks better on ultrawide displays, it's more immersive and it's more enjoyable. You get plenty more pixels, but it's much less demanding on the GPU than 4K gaming is. And it's just also really handy for video editing in Adobe Premiere Pro. You can see more of the timeline at once. But more specifically, what makes the display better than, say, a more cheaper and more affordable Acer Predator X34P? I'll be honest, it's hard to describe. I prefer the LG though. It's just a lot more color accurate, it's brighter, It has the higher refresh rate as well as Freesync 2 support, and yes, it is also G-Sync compatible, so there's no problems there. I only tested it using NVIDIA graphics card and has absolutely zero issue. When I loaded up Far Cry New Dawn and started playing through it on the display, then I tried it again on my Acer X34P. The colours just didn't look quite the same, as vibrant or as beautiful. I was getting the urge to abandon my bedroom and my main gaming setup just so I could come down here and game on this monitor some more. Everything that the Acer Predator X34P does really well, this LG 34GK950F does even better, with the exception of one major deal breaker: no Rgb lighting. I'm kidding. Though it would have been a nice touch if some Rgb lighting was included, similar to what LG implemented on their 32GK850G I checked out a few months ago. Overall though, I've really enjoyed my time with this monitor, and I'm sad to see it go back to LG. If I didn't have the Acer X34P already, I would definitely be looking at this monitor and purchasing this monitor instead, especially as the kind of color accuracy is a big bonus for somebody like me who edits videos or making thumbnails a lot. So now, let's talk pricing. In the UK, I've seen this monitor going for around £1,150 on Overclockers and closer to £1,200 on Amazon. But if you're in the US, this monitor is kind of a little bit more freely available, closer to $1,000, which is a bit of a steal compared to the UK pricing, if I'm honest. But would I recommend this at this price? I probably would. I paid around £1,000 for my Acer monitor over a year ago, and this kind of improves on that in every way. But if you don't care too much about kind of pretend HDR and an extra 24 Hz, and the kind of color accuracy isn't too much of a big deal, the Alienware AW3418DW is a bit of a better buy really at £900, and the Acer Predator X34P is also available for just £800. They're probably a little bit more kind of reasonable regards pricing and features, and this doesn't really offer too much more for that kind of extra £200 to £300 increase. If you just want a gaming only display, those two are probably perhaps more reasonable options. Anyway though guys, that is the end of the video. As always, if you like this kind of stuff, feel free to click that like button, and if you didn't, click that dislike button. Let me know what you thought about today's video and leave your comments down below. And if you decide my face hasn't offended you, don't forget to click that subscribe button so we can see each other again soon. Anyway guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.